Oh, yes. The machine can do it. This is the first. In the future, there will be many more computing machines, thinking machines.
In a shed down by the docks lives a very clever box, and its children will one day rule the world. Only one man knows the potential that it shows, how its DNA will spread throughout the globe. Each time we can't explain what it's for and what its aim, as it takes of algebra and sum. But built with his own hand, he can't really understand how important it will be in days to come. Vive the difference, engine, lurking in a Limehouse backstreet shed.
John White database connectivity. And here we go. The video's in the same thing.
Okay, well, I might just. Do I have to have my ugly mug on the.
You what?
My ugly mug on the camera, or you?
No, you can sit here. I can take my seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah. Keep the microphone. Thank you. Okay.
Right, I'm John White from Cobalt Light Systems. I've been there for 2 years as a software engineer. I'm going to talk about database triggers. So, first of all, we'll start with the usual Wikipedia. What is a database trigger? Well, apparently it's a procedural code that automatically executes in response to certain events on a particular table or view in the database. And it's mostly used to maintain the integrity of the database. So it's a bit dry, as any Wikipedia quote is. So why would we want to use a database trigger? Well, database servers are a very powerful tool. And actually we found you almost end up, your application is actually very small compared to kind of having a MySQL database running, which actually is kind of more powerful than perhaps the application you've actually written. So it's just an idea to get the server to do more of the work than your application. So there are 3 types of triggers, basic types. So you can trigger on insert, on update, or deleting, and you can delete. Those triggers can be before you do your action or after. So your before trigger basically is used to check for data integrity before you actually do your insert, and the after one is usually used for auditing, so you can just have an idea, a trail of what's going on in your database, and that's pretty much what we've used it for, is actually just to track changes in our database. Now, all my stuff is about MySQL. Other databases have similar triggers, but they're all slightly different, and some can operate at the schema level. So if you're creating or dropping tables, you can then track that. It doesn't, with the MySQL kind of, it doesn't. I don't think you can do schema level triggers. Right, and that's very small.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I did wonder, and due to the what we're on 800 by 600.
Yeah.
If I can come out, perhaps then we can just. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Ah.
Well, we've got nothing. That's,
Oh, you just slowly boys as you go left and left and left.
You make it right, John.
Got to 1,073.
oh, that's great. You see it. You see it. Right. That's a start. That's a start. Right. It's got to work out. Oh, it's still tiny. The problem is, so just let's get a bit bigger then. I love toolbars that hide, and then right. So I've got a couple of examples of triggers. So this is an example of an insert trigger. So when you're typing them in, you need to change the delimiter. Otherwise, you can't, because you've got the terminations semicolon on the actual, for each part of the trigger, you need to change the delimiter so you can enter all that code in one go. So some tools, if you use like a Workbench or some of the third-party database tools, they kind of don't actually show you this. So even if you produce the MySQL code from entering in what you want in the trigger, when they produce the MySQL code, it doesn't have the delimiters change. And you sort of sit there for 5 minutes scratching your head wondering why you can't actually produce the trigger if you put it into a prompt, a Workbench prompt. But so you need to change them. So basically this is on insert. So basically you've got your variables, and what I've done is I've set all the columns in my audit table where the trigger is actually going to write to as these variables, so that I can just use this as a template really, and just change this part without having to change much of the code in the insert into example change log. So when you're doing the insert, you only have access to new because you're creating a new row, so you don't have. So I've tried to keep them simple. So basically, as it's an insert, everything is new. So you just, so we've got what table we're changing, what the primary key of is, so we can track what it is, when it was modified, who it was modified by, and the create time. So when you go to an update one, there's a little bit more code because you're just checking really to see if whatever you've changed, so say the job title, has it changed from the old job title? Because you only want to track changes, you don't track stuff that's staying the same. So this would produce an insert into the example change log table for any difference on an update. So you'd have a trigger on each table that you want to track. Right. And now
Shift F5 and get to the right page.
Shift F5. Right. I think I was going to show the video anyway now. So.
Oh, sorry. I'm very pleased with that Shift F5.
So, yeah. Have you looked at the video? Do you know if you can see it or not?
It's quite woody, but it does. It's showing up all right. So there you go.
It's just me running an example. So, just going through the tables and showing that they're empty. So I'm going to insert my trigger. So we're going to do an insert into that table that should be triggered. So if I go back to my users table and update mine, you can see I've inserted all those users. And if we look at the change log, you can see all those users are now into my change log table. So I can track those changes. So I've now got an update. I'm going to change one of the users to be disabled. So you can see it's disabled on the main table. And when you go to the change log, we've now got an update. The column that's changed was enabled, and which primary key it was, what the old value, what the new value was, and the user which did it, and the date and time of that. And this is just another modification. So I think I've changed the job title of one of the users and just show what it changes. I think that is it. So it's very quick. I mean, it's quite a big subject, but it's just a. So if we do Shift F5 space. So that's just a quick idea of what you can do with a database trigger. So as a conclusion, we can move the tracking of audit changes from our LabVIEW code or whatever code we're running to the database. So it kind of, you don't have to do all that coding, and sometimes it can be quite onerous, especially tracking audit changes for updates, where you have to keep checking whether what has changed, and you've got to do that everywhere in your application that you want to. And also this way, because it's not part of your application, if you want to add audit tracking of other tables later on, all you're doing is changing your, your server code. You're not changing your application code. Another thing is that, as you see, I wasn't actually using the LabVIEW program. I was just using the Workbench, and you can track changes there, so it doesn't matter where the changes are occurring. So if someone actually, you log onto your server and make changes, they'll be tracked as well as if they're done by your LabVIEW code or whatever.
Well, effectively, the huge advantage is it's all server-side.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
I do a laboratory management system where every insert, update, delete gets tracked.
Yeah.
But what I do is I go into my audit trail table, after I've inserted it, I copy the statement into the audit trail. Yeah, it works, but it's all client side,
So, yeah.
which is, at least double the workload for the client side.
Yeah.
Whereas that's just...
And this is what we actually kind of used it for. So we had kind of a third-party application we had to report to any changes that we'd made in any of the settings. And so we had another loop in our program which just monitored our kind of audit, our changelog table, and if there were any changes in that, it then reported it to the third party that was like a mothership kind of, control that was checking on changes.
Well, if you're releasing your code out to the wide world, that audit trail is invaluable.
Yeah.
Because I go in, oh, I've lost this. And it's like, you go back, no, at this point you did this, and at this point you did this. And it's saved my ass multiple times.
Yeah.
The audit trail is always worth doing. If you can do it in the background.
So if there's,
Another use of triggers is cleanup when you delete something. So
yes.
you have a spectrum that has spectrum table and spectrum points table and whatever table. Delete spectrum can trigger deleting all all the extra stuff.
Oh yes, you can trigger other other things. So you can you've got foreign key constraint or something that you can
delete all the things first.
Yeah, which is another one of my things is foreign keys.
You don't have to remember I'm deleting from X, but I also have to delete from Y.
Yeah. I was away on holiday and someone was having to deal with a database that I had foreign keys on, and they were cursing foreign keys. Several weeks later, someone had deleted a load of data, and then they wished that they had foreign keys because it would have at least made it more difficult for them to do the delete they had done. So I waited about 5 minutes before I sort of whispered across the office, foreign keys. Right, that's me done.
We discovered, John, is in the case of logs, if you might put a default value.
Yes, a default value in the blob.
Use a trigger
Yes,
to insert a blob
Yeah.
as well. In MySQL,
yes.
SQLite is a bit easier.
Because you can do it as standard, yeah. You can use it as a default in actual insert, can't you?
Does SQLite have triggers?
Yes.
Doesn't really do nothing because you don't need any data. You don't need any parameters.
What's your favourite things are MySQL and SQLite now? Thanks, sir. What's next?